fam? It's your boy coming at you with another fire video brought to you by the Raysean Gadson Anime Podcast, or RGAP for short. And on today's episode, we're going to be interviewing the legendary voice actor John Stimac, learning more about what got him into voice acting, and also about his goals and experiences, and see how that can help you on your journey in finding your passion. So if that has you interested, then sit back and enjoy the ride.
My foolish compatriot who works with humans. I am the vampire lord known as Nudania. Oh, are you going to stand your ground? Interesting. I like your style, compatriot. You too, boy.
I don't want you to like my style.
Stop being so nosy. Our job is to cook the food, not to ask questions about it, all right? Go, go, go! It's fine. We're faster. Faster! He's the one who started this. It could have been simple, but he decided to change his play out of nowhere. Then everything went downhill. We should have taken him out sooner. All your friends arrived. Pleased to hear it. Oh boy, this is bad. If they find out the Sanji disappeared and I was sleeping on the job, Mama will kill me for sure. Once you've settled in and rested up, come to the dining hall. We should be able to serve you all a simple meal, perhaps a soup.
Before we get started with the interview, I wanted to allow you to introduce yourself to the audience and let everybody know your top 3 favorite anime characters, good or bad.
Excellent. Thanks for having me on, Raysean. It's great to be here. Hi, everybody. My name is John Stimac. I'm an American actor, singer, and voice actor. I'm based in New York City, and I've voiced a lot of anime from Crunchyroll, and I've done some projects for HBO, Lilo, Sound Cadence, and the like. 3 of my favorite anime characters, all right? You said, well, I do happen to have 3 of my absolute top fave guys over my shoulders, if you happen to see. I've got Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop. That's been one of my first and favorite animes of all time. I discovered that when I was but watching Toonami, when anime was on television and hard to find, not streaming. Cowboy Bebop was one of my favorites. And Spike, One Piece is one of my favorite animes all time. It's so fantastic. I know it's a lot, but I've been hanging with it for a long time. Luffy's an excellent protagonist and character, one of my favorites. I have probably a couple other favorites from One Piece aside from Luffy, but it's hard to deny how excellent he is. And then my man Alucard from Hellsing over my shoulder here. Hellsing was also one of my first favorite animes that I started really getting into how musical styles and how nuanced, cool anti-hero action could be really palpable. So maybe that's the quickest and simplest 3 I could give you for sure, but I have many more.
Well, Cowboy Bebop, I just love how they integrated jazz music and just the whole different flow of the show. Makes a really good show. One Piece, yes, it's very long, but I mean, Luffy is probably one of the best main
It's getting
characters out
really
there.
good.
It is starting to get really good, and it's starting to feel like it might be coming closer to an end. I'm not gonna say like a few more. It's getting closer. I don't know how much longer he can stretch this out, but it's starting to feel like it. It feels like Luffy's kind of gotten to his like most supreme self right now.
We might be getting
Hellsing,
to the final act. Yeah.
I don't know much about Hellsing. That's probably the only anime I probably have to do a little bit more on. What is that about, if you mind me asking real quick?
Oh, Hellsing is a fantastic anime. Actually, there's 2 versions of this anime out. There's the original version that I got acquainted with came out probably in the early 2000s, and it was a situation where the anime came out alongside the manga, and the anime progressed quicker than the manga was being produced. So at one point, the story
Kind of varied
goes,
off.
yeah, kind of like Full Metal. You have 2 versions, and then one's the way they did it, and then there's Brotherhood, which is more the pure version. So the OVAs are fantastic, and then there's the originals. And Helsing is about a organization that exists in London that acts as kind of the secret um, black ops military organization that keeps vampire and paranormal activity under wraps in Europe and globally too. But they pretty much stick to Europe a lot. And they happen,
Okay.
and it's run by a really strong protagonist female character. The leader of the house, Integra Wingates Helsing, is a she is a really excellent character, very strong, and she happens to have a very excellent weapon at her disposal, which is a a vampire named Alucard who will do anything she says, and he hunts other vampires. And the story is so excellent, and it progresses. I would love encourage anybody to see it. I think you can even see it on Hulu, and it's like 12 episodes are like an hour long, and it's very gory, but it's very fun.
Based on what you're saying, it's kind of giving me Chainsaw Man vibes a little bit. Kind of what just like the organization and then the female being at the top of the whole thing. So it's kind of
Oh,
giving me that. I don't know if you've seen Chainsaw Man, but I'm kind
I
of getting that
have.
vibe.
It's
Oh, do
very
they
good.
seem are they similar to you or that I
There
just
are
threw that?
Chainsaw Man is something unto itself, I would say, but there some of the gory elements and the creative elements certainly ring strong. It's that's what I really like on most animes, as long as the creative elements, like the art direction, is really specific and appealing, and
Hmm.
the story cooks along. There's so many different animes out right now that are so good, that are all
Yes,
very different.
and
And
animation is killing right now.
it's a really amazing industry. I'm really happy to be a part of it. And it was real, you know, I believed that the animation scene was going to keep getting bigger and bigger. I didn't expect the global market to expand as quickly as it did, but the immersion of having good platforms like Crunchyroll and other ones like that that give you access to so much good content, that was inevitable to get to reach a bigger audience. And
Yeah.
as a voiceover professional, it's a really great time to be involved, because there is no shortage of content that keeps coming that seems fresh. A lot of it still keeps feeling fresh, and the audience still receives it well. It's a great time to be an anime fan.
I think the main big reason why it's so popular right now is we kind of have to thank the pandemic for making everybody have to find more content to watch. And now as we're seeing the benefits of it right now. So I'm kind of glad about that.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that for sure. If you said you didn't have time for anime a few years ago, you certainly did.
That's exactly. But before we get into the interview, I know on
Sure.
Instagram, looking at your pictures and stuff, you also do a lot of theater work and stuff. So it seemed like you just recently got done with something. Is there any way you can elaborate on that?
Yeah, I can definitely do that for you. So, you are right. I do a lot of live theater performance. It's where my origins in art began. I went to college for it. I went to Wesleyan, and I have been doing theater performance, wow, for 20 some years. And it's been really amazing. I've been in the Metropolitan Opera for probably the last 10 years, working on different shows with different directors and teams, ranging from like the most classic of works to the most contemporary of works. And it's been really an exciting um it's been such an amazing blessing working there and meeting some of the professionals I have. When I set out to be a live performer, I definitely was feeling a lot of that. um I was just so happy that I was able to do what I wanted to do around such great people. And that's what's kept me in New York for all these years. I did regional theater and was all across the United States for the better part of like 7 years prior to moving to the city. And I have been performing really ever since. And I just finished after an the Metropolitan Opera season is still running, but I finished up some shows there, and while I was doing my most recent one in February, I was contacted by the English National Opera in London in the UK,
Oh,
and
okay.
their casting department asked for my availability for a production that was happening right now. They were like, "We need you yesterday," and I um the opportunity was a show that I had did at the Metropolitan Opera probably 10 months prior called Akhenaten. And it was directed by Phelan McDermott and his amazing team, starring Anthony Roth Costanzo. And it was an amazing opportunity when I did it in New York. And to have them call me and say, "Can you be here like next week?" was so crazy. I have not had that happen before ever, really, at such short notice. I mean, I've had short notice gigs before, but not
That's like
ones where I've
around the
had
world.
to, yeah, not ones where I've had to negotiate a contract and then prepare accommodations, negotiate out of my current contracts and gigs that I was currently performing in. And unfortunately, the amazing team at the Metropolitan Opera and my boss, my superiors there were just so nice to help me uh, in accommodating and getting the current roles that I was in taken care of. The directorial staff was all really excited for me, so getting able to leave was actually a lot. I mean, the only stress of getting out was getting there, fortunately. And I went to London, and I showed up there. I flew out on a Sunday, got there on Monday morning, went right to the rehearsal space, landed at Heathrow, went to the rehearsal space, and walked in, and everyone was standing there. And they were like, "Hello, John, we're going to have a go at Act Three. Would you mind joining us?" And I was like, "Let's go." Took my coat off and we went in there and did it. And the whole rehearsal process, went off without a hitch. Show went amazing. And I made a ton of friends. I got to meet a lot of new people professionally, show my stuff, and really got a lot of great feedback and had a lovely time. And I had never performed internationally in London or internationally in general. Really, I'd been performing really in the United States. So I'm now an international performing artist. That was a nice little check on the resume.
Give my
um,
applause to you, man.
yeah, and I had a lovely time. I was in the city for just shy of 2 months, living in the heart of London. Made a lot of great friends there. I've been to gigs in the past, and usually when you go someplace or even on a vacation, you're there for like 7 days, 10 days, maybe. So it was about like the first weekend. I go, this is going to take a second. Like you just really have to get into a different rhythm when you're going to be there for a while. But I
Hmm.
loved it. And I had such a glorious time walking around in such a new, cool, because I've been in London before, but never have I been to get to know her so intimately. And it seemed like, and being from New York, it has still an urban environment, and the people are still, very progressive. London has a very unique cousin culture to,
New
um,
York.
yes, and I felt it was a very it took a little bit. London has a very fun way of being a little standoffish early, but once you get to know them, they accept you one of your own. And I had a lovely time. I just got back a few weeks ago from that, and it was funny how it almost ended as soon as it came. And I remember thinking this is going to be such a long time.
Did they
Yeah.
pay for your accommodations and everything?
Yes, they
Oh,
did.
that's
We had plenty of conversations. The ENO was really great in helping making sure that all the last minute accommodating would be taken care of. So we had a lovely time.
that is amazing, especially for a free trip and to do something you like to do. Is it a bigger stage?
Y- y- Um, it is maybe not as large as the house at the Metropolitan Opera that I'm used to performing on, but it was definitely a beautiful, huge. It was at the London Coliseum, and it is a beautiful old big haunted building that had such grandiose ambiance. It was totally a treasure, and everyone there was just so wonderful, and like it was for it being as cold and as rainy as it was when I was there, they made it feel very warm. I really look forward to coming back, and I look forward to the next time we get to work together. Knock on wood.
That sounds amazing. Now, with
Yeah.
that,
So
we can
that's what
go.
I did. And that was a really awesome time. Thank you for noticing.
I mean, I didn't know about the whole going to Europe and like stuff like that, but that sounds amazing. I wish I could do something like that. Like if a podcasting group from somewhere else, Japan, just asked me to come over there and host something, that would be amazing. I feel like kind of equivalent to what that is. But
Well, anime culture carries over everywhere. It's funny. You see this shirt I'm wearing. It says Uzumaki. So
I
I
like
wore
that shirt. Did you?
it's
How
really
you get
nice,
that?
right? So I got this actually at an anime themed Japanese ramen restaurant in London that was a block away from my flat where I was staying in Camden Town. And it is I saw someone walking with a bag that said this logo, and I was like, "Where did you get that?" I was like, "That is very familiar to me." And she's like, "Right over there." And I walked into this place, and it's this shameless plug for Uzumaki London. Here you go, guys. Thank me later. I walked in, and they have this glorious gift shop, and all the staff was really nice, all wearing cool custom kimonos, similar with these designs. And they had an custom wallpaper painted by one of the own. I find out later was painted by one of the owners. Large, long portraits of an anime collage of hundreds of different characters from your favorite animes, and it was the most charming and cool place. And it was packed to the gills, like there were kids running around like it was Chuck E. Cheese, just like pointing at all the fig people and talking. And the food was fantastic. We had a lovely time. And on top of it, there's like an anime gift shop there, and they're playing the anime themes over the loudspeaker. You're like slurping down ramen, and then the Naruto drums come in. Dun 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 dun. You're like, aha! It was so excellent. Menu was
Oh,
super clever. I met the owners; they were really nice. Um, because I was walking around and I was like, I have done voices for that character. My brother
hmm.
does that character, and they were like, really? And we had a lovely time. And they're big anime heads, and they're anime just transcends so many different
Cultures.
audiences, cultures, and it was so important to them that they created their own successful restaurant in the heart of London.
Yeah, that is amazing. I think I remember seeing the pictures on Instagram of you taking pictures of the restaurant and stuff.
Oh, I couldn't help but totally, even though I'm very saturated with anime, I couldn't still help but fanboy out a little bit.
I mean,
I
that's
highly
amazing.
recommend it. Go if you ever in a chance to go to London. Anybody who's listening to this, go to Uzumaki London and try their food and enjoy yourself. If you're an anime fan, it's just delightful.
Did they just have like anime based food from like different animes and stuff?
Yeah, it's pretty. It's like very much the menu of like a ramen style restaurant, but the ramen is like 10-10 ramen, Vegeta ramen. Uh, there's
Hmm.
Naruto ramen. There's Naruto Uzumaki, Nine Tails ramen. They have a bubble tea. One, they have 9 different bubble teas, one for each of the tailed beasts. I was like, sold.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really creative. I mean, just even and on top, like it was a bonus that the food was good. I would have, I would have, I would have accepted mediocre food for just the ambience, but that wasn't even the case. I was just crushing the ramen, and the um
And
croquettes they had were just like, oh, the ice
hmm,
cream, the mochi ice cream. Oh, it was lovely. This has turned into a
sounds
commercial really quickly, but anime and food are some of my two favorite things to talk about. So you derailed me easily. But again,
yes.
that was one of those experiences that, why going to London, I told myself that's the universe works in mysterious ways. Sounds corny, but when you're um out there on your own, discovering new environments and cities and talking to new people, you have a real opportunity to like see what the universe presents you. And right around the corner from me was a place that was almost damn near tailored to all of my preferences. So
Yeah.
I was very happy about it.
And it's something you
Yeah.
probably never would have got to see in New York, so it's a good thing you did get to
Oh,
go out
well,
there.
I mean, I wouldn't say that you couldn't get anything like that in New York, but I haven't seen anything like that in New York. And I talked to the boys and said, bring one of those to New York City. You do real good out here.
It'd be some crazy if it was like some underground anime place you could go to. It's always something crazy like that.
Oh, sure. Especially if you could like go there and like on a Saturday night watch like the releases of like the Tokyo 7 material. I would totally do that.
Oh, for sure. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Or just some old anime content. I'm for it. But
Yeah. It
let's get right
yeah.
into the interview. We've already chatted.
Right in now. Now we start. Let's start now. Okay.
For my first question, how did you get into voice acting and what inspired you to pursue it as a career?
Hmm. Oh, good question. Yeah. So voice acting for me, excuse me, it's something that I have always wanted to kind of do, but never knew how to do. Everybody who knew me growing up and would know that I have a very um, electric personality and I love voices. I used to love content, and that's why I liked a lot of anime and and cartoons. I mean, I grew up in a real golden era where animation and cartoon were voiced by some of the greats. Like I loved the real Ghostbusters, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with Rob Paulson and Maurice LaMarche. Some of these guys were just, it was just such a palpable art form, and you can't goof the ear. Like we're watching it, we know these are not real turtles, but if you have good like good voice acting is like completely convincing to the creative imagination to me. I've just found that it and so I always used to do voices a lot and had a lot of fun with it, and that creativity, because I was shy young but still loving voices and cartoons, moved me up, and I eventually ended up doing theater, which probably ended up having some form of a outlet because of that ability to love to create and to slide into other skins and enjoy being something else totally different is very exhilarating and fun and fresh and nothing you can plan. It's a very on the fly thing. So characters always were fun to me. And then I ended up going in, I was an actor. I just did, like I told you before, I was a live stage actor for years. So my brother, actually, who's one of my best friends, he's great. His name is Marcus D. Stimac. Uh, you were generous with legendary voice actor me. He is a legend. Marcus is so great. Marcus has been working for Funimation and then Crunchyroll after they acquired them, and he's been a voice actor for like 15 plus years. I mean, he has done hundreds of characters and is so immensely talented. And I was always really so fascinated by what he was able to do because the localized industry is in Dallas, which is where he went to school. And during the pandemic happened, and we all stopped. The location became irrelevant, and I started transitioning. I was doing audio dramas for a company where we were doing it was actually really amazing. I was doing my first voiceover gigs that I did where I would have called them like a proper utilized voiceover gig were audio dramas for Resounding. And we did like beautiful audio dramas written by Steve Wargo, performed by some of Broadway's finest actors, and including myself. And we did these live radio dramas from remote recording setups. And this is like in the first few months of the pandemic of everybody trying to organize around art forms. So I built a studio. I I'm a carpenter by in college. I was a carpenter, and I'm like an engineer type of background from my high school eras. So I was actually very capable to pro- um, work with wood and build projects. So I built a studio that was very useful during the pandemic, and everybody who saw it really liked it. And so my brother reached out to Funimation at the time and told them that I had a studio and about my talent and about what I've been doing with the radio dramas. And I was able to, actually, I believe it was Mike McFarland that brought me in. Shout out Mike McFarland. He's a legend. He's true legend, and he is amazing. Mike McFarland actually brought me in for my first role, and I did a remote recording with Mike McFarland, and I was doing a lot of work with Crunchyroll during the remote years during the pandemic, and that's how I got my start in animation, primarily after I started my radio drama work. And it all kind of really worked hand in hand because my theater background and my singing background allowed to I have training to create musicality, to create characters, to utilize breast support, and I have a big voice.
Mhm. So mainly all the things you've done in like live action helped you kind of switch over to do voice acting, basically. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm saying it didn't. It certainly contributed to the voice that I have today and what I do.
Okay.
I wouldn't say theater work is absolutely necessary to be a voice actor at all.
Hmm.
I know a lot of people that have never had vocal training or are like, I'm an opera singer and also a classical musical theater artist. Not everybody has to have that type of vocal control to be effective in the voiceover industry. There's so many if anything, authenticity to who your real voice is more important nowadays, with especially with commercial work, industrials, the diversity of voices that we want nowadays is a lot wide. There's a much higher demand for a variety of that, which is such an amazing gift as a voiceover artist, and to even be in the industry that you have now so many opportunities. And
Okay.
yeah.
For side question, have you had any like character that has allowed you to use more of your opera background into it?
um excuse me. Well, I would have to say that Nudanium, my vampire lord, definitely has a bit of grandiose under him.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it. Oh, he kind of has a bit of a bad boy. What are you doing? Oh, he has a very lifted, like
The
big
the
resonance to him. He's kind of a evil Superman
hmm.
sort of vibe. So I really tuck it back and utilize a lot of my resonance for that, which I use for my singing voices a lot. So I wouldn't necessarily tuck the voice down here to talk like many other characters unless it was very specific. You, you
And
know,
it kind of gives you more of a vampire vibe to it a little bit.
oh yeah, well, hence the vampire. Or heavies, I'm or like uncles or there's
Hmm.
so many other characters they require gruff nature. Really it's all about the emotion, and like it doesn't and so many directors nowadays have the ability to utilize different talents like and the nuances of every different voice type. So if you get an opportunity to work with a director who allows you some flexibility to play with a character, it's really a delightful. Usually when you're doing bringing a character, you've usually auditioned with a voice and a character that they kind of want to keep with, and you will get to play every now and then. um, I really enjoy doing video game voiceovers a lot because you
Hmm.
do get to there's so many different character types in video games, and really anything goes.
Okay, so you're not as directed as much.
Boom. There's certainly a level of video game directing. Getting directed in a video game session is really different than an anime or a traditional dubbing situation. Um, Depending on the setup, there might be different writers. Your lines are they're shorter, more action based.
Hmm.
They're unless you're doing the really advanced mocap voice acting, that's pretty much acting. In certain, like nowadays, certain video games, like they will have straight up, you will be acting in that and the voice of that.
I
in the
think I've
studio.
seen what you're talking. Don't they do that for Call of Duty? I think.
Yeah, they do that for a lot of games. They've been doing it for a long time, but now it is very widely and is pretty much universally used for all of those new immersive game styles. You will film like Resident Evils like that, Call of Duties, God of War is pretty much exclusively done like that. That's a very amazing industry to get into as well. It's a totally different skill set, and you really need to get in with those studios to learn that skill of wearing the suits, utilizing your natural nuance, like because you're not putting on a costume to let it influence a character, or the elements you would usually theatrically, if you were used to adding elements to create characters, you really have to even more so use your imagination, which is also why I love voice acting. You get to just really get creative with it, and as long as you have a short memory span, it's really and then you can like keep moving forward. It's really excellent, you know.
All right. For my second question, where was your first audition? Did you audition online or was it live? Or also were you intimidated?
My first audition for like an anime voiceover.
Yep.
Ooh, first anime voiceover audition was, oh, I believe I auditioned for a bunch of characters from One Piece, actually. Um, I auditioned for, oh wow.
It was it the cook we seen in the beginning?
No, I actually did not audition for that. That was so I auditioned for very very large roles at Crunchy. Fun. It was Funimation at the time. I had auditioned for. They sent me aside, and I did some auditions for some large characters. And usually, in certain audition scenarios, and like for most of these large projects, you will do sides for a handful of characters, and they will not. They will. You will see three or four, but they are casting way more than three or four, and they will use like they will use you for other things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I was relatively new to the industry, I was not expecting right away to be cast as the lead character right away. So, but they found a good he found a niche for me in that, and they used me for that. I have a nice little sit spot for that old man. He has a good grumble there. It's very endearing, though. You can take him very many places. When you're doing voice, like when I'm doing voices, especially ones that are kind of character. One Piece is really fun because the character design is so variant, and but more so why you have to be a little disciplined in how you try to execute the character, because you don't want to seem too cartoony, but you also want to give it what it needs. Um,
True.
it, if you're looking at that, if that is a talking giraffe who uses swords, I'm gonna make that work. If that person is made of cake or floor, we're gonna make that work. Or it's gonna be something else. But yeah, I think I don't can't remember which round it was, but I believe my first auditions was One Piece, and I was absolutely overjoyed. I remember being super excited, because not only was my first experience an audition for one of my favorite animes, I've
That's what I was about to
really,
say.
yeah, one of my absolute favorite animes. I was with somebody that I really respected in the voiceover field, and who had produced and directed a lot of the work that I really like. And I was also testing out my new studio, so there's a lot of layers to it, but it was all really well received. And I got brought in for some character roles. I did other bits after that. I mean, you've only seen a few there, but I've done so many other little characters. And it's been really an amazing experience, because being a part of the because I also am a remote recording artist who does not live in the studio area,
Okay.
which is usually a lot more preferred when you're recording, when you have someone there. But I still have so many opportunities, and I just every time I visit the studio, I get to record when I'm there. Oh, Ice Blade Sorcerer is a really good anime that
I
my
was
bro-
literally legit just watching
did,
that.
did you? Well, that's ADR directed by my brother Marcus, and he cast and directed that whole show that season, and it was so entertaining. And his cast was so excellent, and it was the first anime that they gave him the reins to direct and take care of, and it was a overwhelming success. It was, I believe it was the number one anime on Crunchyroll platform for numerous weeks, and that's over Chainsaw Man, One Piece dub, One Piece sub, and My Hero Academia. I was like, what?
Yeah,
So it
that
was a
is
really,
crazy.
yeah, and it was a testament to how a lot of new anime is actually very, like, even if it's not a mainstream or what I would say a more popular one, a lot of these what people would consider B class animes. I
I
hesitate
feel
to
what you're
use
saying.
that. I hesitate to explain that way because they're all gems in their own way usually.
They just don't got a big audience behind them, basically. But I've read the manga for
Yeah.
that, the Ice Blade Sorcerer. So that's interesting to know that your brother actually directed that. Okay.
Hmm. Oh, and it's so funny too. I mean, I love if you're gonna do an anime nowadays, you should be whimsical with it, or at least find it has to. I like it even if it's super serious. A whimsical voice is very necessary. Like even in Demon Slayer, you have like Inoki. I'm getting that right. Um, there's just so many.
Inosuke? Is that what you said?
Inosuke. Yes, sorry. I was like, I mean, you got to chop it up.
I feel you. But moving on to my third question.
Yeah, let's keep it
It's
going. This is great.
before choosing a role, do you read the source material to get an idea about the character in the story?
Oh yes, 100% of the time. Yeah. If I am given source material, I'm always going to use it. It is, yeah, it's kind of especially in the being as an American dub artist, there is usually a handful of episodes to view. Every now and then, there's a situation where you're going to get the simulcast where like the new Chainsaw Man, when I had friends who were going to be in that, there was not much to look at before. You had the
Yep.
manga. So it was really, I love watching the source material, being a subtitle fan initially. Um, I also think it's very important. This is not a truism by any means, but I have for my technique in anime, I prefer to, if I hear the subtitle of the Japanese voice actor's performance, and generally if that is what is chosen, I will try to take certain vocal elements that they have presented and use them for consideration with the character.
Okay.
um i I will by no means do it exactly like it every time, but there are times where I see a casting and I see I hear what that character sounds like, and I go, all right, like if like if he is a big bat, like the guy, well, for example, the character I play, Nudanium, is voiced by a super famous Japanese voice actor who he is a heavy. He's a very famous heavy, and when you hear his voice, you're like, oh, it's like, even when I heard, I go, oh my gosh, it's that guy. Like I was like, oh my goodness, I'm the voice of that guy for this guy. And that's why they picked him, because it's also funny, because my character is kind of comic relief, but it's
Mhm.
funnier that you have a super heavy voice actor doing the voice, because he gets into like little hijinks and you're like, oh, but that's that guy. Yeah. But
That's
I,
a
when I he he had like a really like, who's the good guy, like he's like, he had a big deep back end of his throat, like resonant voice. I'm like, I'm gonna probably try to do that. One Piece is a weird one because there will be voice actors that do that, like, or if your character doesn't have a mouth, or like we can't see what like they do for that. Like a lot of times it'll be depending on what their mouth looks like. If I have a guy who's all fangs, I'm probably going to try to put a little bit of different physical inflection on it. You
I
know, when
feel
I'm
you on
making
that.
those
Yeah.
decisions. But and that's only really those decisions I only get to make kind of in the audition process when I'm assessing the character. Um I will generally do two takes. I'll do the one that I think is I was like, I'll do the one that I think they want, and then I'll do the one that I think is a good one to throw in there. You know, but it's if you're gonna do like two takes, like not every character has two different voices. There might not be 10 different ways to do a character, especially when you're one person. There's obviously 100 different voices a character can have with 100 different voice actors.
True.
But when you are doing auditions, I try to tell people this too. Like when you're doing your takes, know what you would do. Know this is how you would do it. Like if they said do this right now and you like have the job, how would you do that voice? That's a good one to do. Do it just like that, you know? And then
Okay.
if you have something they like, and you obviously are doing following the script to a T, like a lot of different scripts have how they want you to deliver the lines, how like what your context kind of is. You might not have a source material scene to back up what your side is. I might not
Oh,
have a
okay.
video scene of a side I have to do, and that's okay. I will then just make my own decision based on what I've seen. It's not a perfect art form, but that's why I also teach classes to people. And that's why you take classes to kind of teach. There's little tricks you can do to identify certain story factors that influence character, how the writers are communicating to the actor using punctuation and other context clues, things like that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's not really a perfect answer, but like that's how kind of I try to pick voices for characters.
and I also like that you're also going back and looking at the source material, going and looking at the Japanese voice acting and basically going off of that. So you're basically kind of taking that
100%.
tone and saying,
Yeah.
let me kind of make it seem similar to what's already being out there. And I can feel that.
Y- Yeah, you should definitely know what type of anime you're submitting for. I have had some people I've reviewed auditions for some people where I just kindly have like refer back to them like, well, what do you think the tone of this anime is? Some animes are really
Dark.
dramatic. Some are really dramatic, but a lot of animes nowadays are kind of a lot of popular animes are built in kind of like a general like social civilization area of the last 100 years. We're spanning anywhere between like the Victorian era till now.
Yeah.
Like you have societal structure in place, like you're generally communicating as a normal person would in society for a lot of these characters, unless you're doing a totally bizarre anime like One Piece where you're like, oh, you grew up on an island, or you're a jungle, or you're a spider. Sure, there's that weird case. But when I work with students and clients, I tell them like when they're trying to find their own voice, because a lot of naturalism is required to communicate a lot of these characters, because a lot of them are very normal but then experience extreme circumstances. Like Chainsaw Man goes from 0 to 100 really fast out of
He
nowhere,
has to do.
and then it will come down really hard. A lot of, and that's a big thing as a voice actor. And I tell them with voice, how I prepare voices and source material inclusion is, can I take this voice as high, not necessarily as high, but as varied to the biggest of big moments, and can I take it down? Does this voice have sustainability to be able to go through the biggest of situations and also be in the most gentle of situations? Like it's
I feel what you're saying
even if
because
you're doing it, if you even if you're doing a crazy man, oh, you can maybe hang out with a little kitty. Are you little kitty? But then he might be ready to handle some of the biggest. Like there's some,
being able to
but you
jump
have
from
to
that.
see. But I'll usually test out that with a voice to be like, can I make this? Because I've done some voices sometimes where I've gotten feedback in auditions and they go, that version of that guy couldn't come down, or maybe his sustainability was only up here, but I couldn't see it coming down, or maybe it only had some gentleness to it that worked, but maybe I couldn't take that voice
Up.
to where they wanted it without pushing, or they could have put somebody else in, so there's it's not a perfect art form. That's why there's so many different uh, voices available, so many different projects, so many different directors and different styles. It's it's really a one size fits all industry kind of at the moment.
During the pandemic, you created a recording business. I wanted you to elaborate more about that and your goals for the business.
Yeah, I did. So my physical booth building company where I build custom studios and I provide soundproofing installations for clients is called Quixotec, like Don Quixote. And I've built studios up in New Jersey, Connecticut, Yonkers, Queens, Manhattan. Like I've been kind of built. I built studios up in this like upper New England area, but it's doing really well. I have some more installations coming up this late spring here.
Okay.
We've been still the remote recording scenarios aren't as people don't need the recording scenarios as much as they did when we started the company, but we still have a lot of people that who started during the pandemic have made some headway, want to take their setups more seriously, and then contact me to invest to make sure they can get a recording studio that make suits their needs. Um, I have one actually. It's right here. Here's my studio here, and I
Hmm.
use it all the time. It's a huge asset to when you have to turn out auditions all the time. I'm represented by two different agencies that are some of the best voiceover agencies in the country right now that provide a ton of opportunities. I mean, I'm auditioning for some Pixar, DreamWorks, Netflix, Nickelodeon. It's like a really awesome time to be a voice actor,
Wow.
especially for someone like me who does character voices. I do have like a really good, robust voice, but I do character voices for like little birds that are trapped in trees. Like I did hedgehog dad the other day, and there was like a little, we're doing all these other. It's so fun to be playful with if you like target different in parts of the industry. Like kids animation is very fun but very different than anime. Very
That's what I'm
different
thinking. I don't even.
principles of auditioning usually, and different types of scripts. Um, and you usually will get no source material with those at all. The only thing I ever get source material with is anime, usually.
Okay.
Oh, and the director usually does not have to do that. It's nice when they do, but not every director does provide, like, here's the link to the episode that you can see. Doesn't always happen, but it is nice.
It's amazing that your business is still going on. How
Yeah,
much?
it is. We're
If
doing really good right now, actually. And now we do more classes. Sorry to interrupt, but it's like, yes, we do now. I've been doing a lot more voiceover classes, working professional prep with a lot of different students that have, or people that have been trying to work in voiceover, have a few profiles, have been maybe toiling at it, tried a couple audiobook things, but like aren't necessarily finding traction within the industry of
hmm
voiceover, which I tell people is a totally different thing. It's so important to do. And I wish I had this information when I started, because it's so valuable to reach out to professionals that are connected that can teach you about the mindset of how you attack the voiceover industry, because there is so many different outlets and ways to target clients. It's really, it can be overwhelming for a lot of people. So we found a lot of activity in helping people, uh helping talk cater to their individual scenarios, because every person is a little different and has
hmm
different tools, because there are tools you can do to become a better voice actor. You just might need to make an adjustment every now and then, or just we evolve as people and as talents. Maybe it's time to upgrade your demos. Maybe it's about time to find a new platform, and how you have you gone to a new meet and greet seminar for narrators, potentially to meet new producers. You know, there's no one way, but having the ability to work with clients and have them see what they can do, and where, because it really comes down to what they want to do, and then we just slightly guide what we think their voice type is good for.
So
You
basically, just
know,
giving everybody the materials to show them where they need to go.
yeah, it's the
Okay.
easier way to do it. We still do like I'm actually, this is a nice announcement, I guess. Well, my brother and I are now represented by Anime Enthusiast United. It is an anime convention company, and we're now going to be going to cons around the country, and we are actually going to be doing panels and appearances about voice acting, how to target the industry, how to find your voice. And my brothers and I are actually going to be doing these panels, and it's going to be really fun personally, because I get to be with my brother and we get to work on all these projects together. But yeah, now we're like represented through this convention agency that wants to take us and do the same thing that we're just talking about, is be accessible to people who like have their own unique situation that just maybe need a little something specific. Or we also have many materials to give them to help pursue it on their own time. You know, there's kind of a step by step process every talent can do, but you know,
You
sometimes
gotta let
everybody
me
else needs a
know.
little bit of touch.
Yeah, let me know if you come to Cincinnati, because that would be really cool to see you in person.
Oh yeah, actually, there's a. We'll keep that in mind. I will.
Okay.
I will talk to them. We can't
Uh,
say anything yet, but we look forward to keeping you updated.
for my next question, do you get more satisfaction from giving a good read or giving a great live performance? I feel like this was a good
Ooh.
question.
Oh, I mean, there is nothing like really when you finish doing a live performance. I mean, as an actor, the guilty pleasure is, man, there's something so satisfying about when you've just tuckered yourself out for the last couple hours, pouring your soul out there, taking the bow, and then heading out. Um, that is very satisfying in the moment. The funny thing about that question, though, is like, so the read, yes, I love giving a good read. But the funny thing about a good read is I never know when I've made the good read. A lot of times you don't never know when you nail. Like there's sometimes when you're like, totally nailed that. You're like, I nailed that, right? They're like, yeah, you totally nailed that, dude. Yeah, so like sometimes that will happen, but I will every now and then watch. Like it's funny to watch. I love watching it on the other end. There is like kind of a huge satisfaction to watching the thing you did, watching the read happen like on TV. That's really
Okay.
satisfying. I mean, seeing it happen and then you're just like, oh, that's the one. You're like, that's really great. But sometimes I go, they used that one. That was the one that they used. I was like, I thought that was a joke one, and they're like, no, they kept that. That was the one. It's like sometimes you let it rip a couple times, and like they kept the second one. Holy crap! It's really, um, yeah. But I do love, and the camaraderie of doing live theater is also pretty unparalleled. There's a reason why so many actors um, work so hard and sacrifice so much to be a part of live productions. Because not necessarily all the time is it super financially like agreeable for a lot of people, or people aren't necessarily professional actors who get to be part of live theater all the time. But when you get to be a part of it, it's just so rare, and it's so classic. It just feels like you feeling something so fresh, but this has been around for thousands of years. When you did something with other people, you know, it's really satisfying. um
And I feel like getting that
no.
instant like reply back to your performance is also like getting the applause and
Oh
everything.
yeah, and then you put it in the can, and you never got to worry about it again. You're never not. You can be
That's
done with it. Yeah.
all right. For my next question, so if I was an amateur voice actor and I wanted to get into the business, what would be the best route? And where can I find auditions? Because I feel like these are some main questions I always hear people ask.
Yeah, definitely. Um, that's a great question. I talked to a lot of clients about this. So, particularly into animation, you're saying, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So, animation is a very interesting field. It's I tell people what they should do with animation a lot is that there's a couple like platforms you can use organizationally to have your profiles on that do have submissions for animation work. Um, Backstage, Actors Access, casting networks will every now and then have you will every now and then see listings for like primarily I see lots of video games or independent projects, which if anybody's trying to get into this field, I highly recommend utilizing resources to find independent auditions to give you some experience with. Um, I use Twitter a lot, actually, and Discord a lot to track down auditions from people that are looking for non-union people who have particular setups. They'll say if they want you to have a recording setup or what they need. Generally, if you're going to pursue voice acting, there's obviously a few boxes I would say you should check before you start auditioning and looking for audition animation work, providing you check a couple of these boxes, which would be getting equipment and then having a conversation with a professional about how you'd like to set up your thing, do a couple test runs, and then, you know, get a little experience with your recording software. And then here, we're going to go. Um,
Okay.
yes, then you can track down these auditions online. And then they will usually provide you, they'll tell you the parameters of the audition. You read them thoroughly. You can reach out to somebody like myself. I do audition coaching and submission coachings, um, which for some people is very valuable because it's a big opportunity and you want to make sure that you really get the most out of it. I can help you analyze the script. Once you get the knack and the knowledge base from somebody like me to help give you the tools to notice certain parts of what they're in the script, what they're looking for, what's important, how you can use that to affect your delivery. A lot of people mess up auditions by just not naming the file correctly, which will blow your mind, but that is a huge thing. Or people talk too much during slates or don't see that it says slate your name at end. You want to be very like if you can't follow the directions from the beginning, they're probably not going to look at you. So there's little things like that. Um,
That's
but I would
interesting
like
to
I
know.
said, finding people there are online opportunities to seek out independent and non-union work that are totally okay to look at. I would say you should be very careful about making sure that it's actually do a slight vetting, click around a bit. Like I would not click a link that says need voiceover person for thing $60 five sentences or something. Like don't do that stuff. Like, there are AI threats out there and there are scam artists that will try to take advantage of your time and get your hopes up. But that's why there's also, you can vet processes a little bit. And after you get in touch with usually your first audition and you book your first gig, which will happen through a series of auditioning, or if you know somebody, then the magic rule. They say if you know somebody or take an audition class from somebody who knows somebody, or take, because then once they hear you, they can tell somebody about the work you did,
Yeah.
take classes in New York, take classes from casting directors online. If you're having trouble breaking through, give yourself some exposure with like-minded individuals. I would say totally take classes and seminars from like one that you feel might be worth it and take a risk. If you've never done one before, the first one is going to feel weird anyway. You're just going to like then
Yeah.
go see another one. And if you didn't like what you heard, that's okay. You can find somebody else. You're usually going to learn something from each class you take. You might not learn everything from the whole class, but I guarantee you, each class you take, you're going to learn at least one thing
And the
from
key
it.
word from what I've heard here and there is basically networking. Basically,
Oh yeah, it's all who it. I mean, it's all about giving yourself the tools to create a mindset
around a business that requires networking and in fact relies on it, because once you're in, you are in. I would rather use somebody and call somebody that I know right away can do that, because I know their voice, I know their setup is strong, I know they've got great reputation, and every time they log in, they're super delightful and they nail it like the first couple times. And if they don't right away, they don't get frustrated. You know, that's only so much you can ask for with certain people, but if you do that right a couple times, and it doesn't hit right away. Like I had the benefit of did know somebody right away, and I had an opportunity to contact a major studio and got an opportunity when work was in high demand. So that was a very nice softball pitch there for me.
Okay.
But, that only can take you so far, because then I had to reach out to other studios. I networked with other people about after I did. I created demos. I sent them out, networked, got myself representation, getting yourself a team. You need it. Like, if you want to be an effective voice actor, get yourself different agents, start stacking your client list. There's so much to this industry that excites me truly. That's why I teach classes. I mean, I'm actually doing a seminar this Saturday, um, with a studio called 99 that does I do digital seminars for people that want to hear from skill professionals about their experience in art and media. So I'll be doing something similar where I'll be going into detail more about what we're discussing today, about how to kind of more specifically what targeting the industry means, what finding your voice means, and how to give yourself, like, because each person doesn't need 10 demos, but I
Yeah.
would suggest you got to start with one. So let's get the one that works for your voice type right away. And then if I don't have a demo, what do I do? Great. Let's contact someone who will make you a demo. Let's talk about what demo you want. There's a certain amount of investment that comes to being a voice actor early on, but that's part of the reward, is because it makes you really want to hunker down a little bit more.
Yep.
you know, um, and it takes stuff. I mean, this is a whole trade that if I wanted to learn how to be a plumber, I would have to buy a handful of things if I actually wanted to go do it. So,
True. It shows when you're willing to invest into something without getting like that financial gain up front. It shows how much you actually love what you're doing. So
yeah,
I can
and
feel that.
animation is such a fan favorite. It's so personal to so many people, and so many people want to try to find a way to expand that relationship with that art form. And not everybody will be able to do that, but you can feel a sense of accomplishment by understanding what it took to be a part of that. And you can then, once you know how to, you can just keep trying. Because even I don't book every audition every time. I do a lot of them, but I don't, there's like, it's kind of a numbers game, but also there's a lot of books out there. There's a lot of
Yeah.
content. We put a lot of energy into wanting one thing, but that one thing might be something else that's right around the corner.
Yeah. And then I think also if you're thinking about voice acting, you gotta think about how much voice acting is in everything. It's not just anime, it's in
Yes.
radio, it's in movies, it's in it's like it's in every little thing. So you always gotta explore. Maybe anime might not be for you.
Oh, and the amount of different voices I hear nowadays. I mean, even especially during podcasts, there's podcast commercials. You can meet one producer one time at a meet and greet who will use you for 900 different commercials on podcasts that have to change every week. And we're talking little spots. You get used to when they say this is a 15-second spot, you get used to squeezing that line into that 15 seconds. Like you start getting better at understanding those reads, you know,
It's all practice and
you
building
know.
up your portfolio. That's basically.
Yeah, and
Well,
and everybody has different there's in so many different and you can take liberties with it creatively. There's no right or wrong really to the industry as long as you're respectful to it. And I think I would say the only wrong would be if you did anything that you felt did yourself a disservice, you
that's
know,
true.
because really the creative element of this job allows you the flexibility to really own it, which is really great. And even the audiobook industry, which we haven't even gotten into a lot yet, but I do a whole thing on audiobooks. But you can make a living.
For
You know how many
sure.
thousands of books are written by the Globe all the time? And
Yeah.
that guy who wrote that book in the Netherlands might need an American voice actor to do his American dubbing. How do you find that guy?
Mm,
I'll show you.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I got two more questions, and then we basically
Great.
wrap up
Yeah.
the interview. For my next question, this is more about how to maintain your voice. Okay, so how do you
Mhm.
keep your voice healthy and maintain your vocal range?
Water, water, water.
Oh,
Sleep,
okay.
a little bit more water. No. He says, well, no, drinking some water. Don't do what I did and just like drink coffee all afternoon. No. um, really, vocal care, so paramount. A lot of things you can do to stay healthy with your voice is work it. Um, I will tell people when you're healthy and you know that when that is, take liberties on working your voice if you want. The voice is a muscle. Push it, give it, work on your breath support, work on how you because a lot of times I tell people who wear their throat out a lot, maybe sometimes their breath support is a little off or connect to your breath.
Mhm.
Work how we connect, breathing is a huge part of vocal health because otherwise you start because even now if I take out my stomach, then you can eventually start like I'll put a little pressure on my vocal cords that doesn't need to be there as a as opposed to when I engage my diaphragm and then now it can sit comfortably because it has plenty of air and now everything is fine. you know, um, wear masks in public places. That's a funny thing too. Obviously, you cannot do your voiceovers if you're sick. There's certain places where I live in New York City. I wear my mask on the subway all the time. And also a trick too is if you are feeling dryness in your throat and nose and you do have to do voiceover, I will put masks on, not even for I'm talking like a COVID mask or any sort of like mask to cycle through humidity through my breath to
Okay.
create if you really are getting that dry, creating humidity immediately wearing a mask will help. Obviously, keeping humidifiers around is really good to help keep your voice moist. I highly recommend if you have gigs where you need to engage your voice a lot using humidifiers at night the day before. I mean, there's so many things I could tell you about vocal health, but the biggest one is it's very important. And especially if you have to do lots of hours with audiobooks or if you're going to do a long booth session. I've done a couple sessions that are like 3 hours, and those are really, those can be really exhausting, especially if you're screaming.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I did this one session once where I was like at a I was like at a concert. I think it was Zombieland Saga or something. I was just like screaming for 2 hours because you had to be like you were at a concert,
Hmm.
and that naturally elevates your voice and how you're talking to other people. But then you're like, but I always hydrate. If they allow you to have water in the booth, keep water. There's no substitute for it. Um, yeah. But there's a
Okay.
lot of things you can look up online. But vocal health, man, try to get a jump on it before if you're feeling something rough, especially before a gig. If you have to record the next day, like I'm a very preparatory artist in that when I have a gig, like I start going through the motions to make sure I'm prepared a couple days from now. You have to make sure you're properly hydrated, properly ready to go because the booth and voice acting is extremely caloric. You'd be amazed how much you actually get exhausted doing voice acting. I think people would be surprised. You know,
Um,
I just feel like that's a misconception is that what you just do voices? I'm like, yeah, well, it's a bit harder than that, bud.
yeah,
you
it,
know,
it really depends. Especially like my favorite anime is Dragon Ball. I'm thinking about all those scenes where you have Goku screaming and screaming, and then like literally, I think we've heard I can't even think his name, the main actor for Goku, but he's literally passed out doing that scream. So I
Oh, I
mean
mean, sure.
that
And he'll probably ask every now and then. I'm sure he's in the booth, like, "Can you pull that from a previous thing?" Like, yeah, we could probably find that. Like, if you have me, like, sometimes that will happen. That's kind of fun. Like, do you need me to do that thing? And they're like, no, I'm pretty sure you've screamed at the absolute top of your lungs at one point during this. We'll just go find one. I,
I would love
if
that.
every now and then, if you have it, there are some amazing engineers that I've worked with that will blow your mind, and they're like, oh yeah, I've actually like I remember where that is. I can actually go pull that up, and I'll go bring that in over here. We can add that to this section. That'll fill that up, and you're like, wow, like a good engineer is worth their weight in gold, and they're always underpaid, and they're always in high demand. Well, I feel like they should be in high demand.
You would
They're really
think so, because
amazing.
I mean, but
I've
you
worked with
never.
some of the greatest, and some of my good buddies are some of the best engineers, and I'm always amazed at what they do. And being good friends with engineers, that's another great element to talk about with the business, is that you, as a voice actor, should absolutely get to know the process front to back. Have friends that are engineers, get familiar with their process, get familiar with like, if you're allowed to, talk to the directors and the producers, like really observe this, because the process, you're just one part as a voice actor of a very intricate process, and it's so important to be humble and to be very focused, and to just be fun. Like, you can be fun, you don't have to be. I wouldn't tell people be serious. I would tell people be focused and light, because it's just a job.
Yeah,
But being able to work, you need to be able to work with the people. Sometimes you don't get the best direction, but you can ask questions every now and then. If it's not the right thing right away, don't sweat it. You're going to find it. There's ways around this, you know.
all right. And for my last question, is basically, what is the best way to handle rejection?
Oh, I was going to ask you. No? Okay. No. the well, that's a good question. I mean, it's a very fair question. I mean,
Because I'm
that's
pretty
something
sure
people have been
you
wondering
don't
for a
get
long
all of
time.
them.
Oh, that's absolutely for sure. I do not get all of them. Um, I don't know anybody that does, actually. You may feel that sometimes as an artist. You may feel that guy or girl gets absolutely everything. Like, what the heck? Like, what am I doing? Like, that will creep in a lot more often sometimes, but there's a recognition to that. There's usually comes out of a place where you want to succeed, which is a good place. I tell people, like, if you're feeling something negative about an experience of rejection, it's because you care, which is really good.
Mhm.
But and you can process that, but a lot of times with voiceover, like, it depends. Like, in the world of voiceover, you turn out a lot of these, and granted, there may be that opportunity where you're like, I could have been, you're like, oh, that was that audition for Fooly Cooley reboot, and I could have had that. And oh, like, that would have been great to be, but you're like, but somebody else goes, and that's fine. Um, it came as quickly as it went. It's
Yeah.
gone. You don't get a lot of time to work on certain auditions in the voiceover world, and generally you don't want to. I will tell a lot of people, there's very few situations where you will work on an audition for multiple hours or days. Like, you really want to get to a healthy place where you can set up your spot, bang out the audition in probably anywhere between like 10 minutes to an hour. Generally, my sweet spot is like, depending on the length of text, you can be done doing that in 20 minutes. Let it go. Um, the best part about being an artist is knowing, like, the best and worst part about being an artist is knowing that there are plenty of opportunities. That can be a little maddening, and but that's also why I'm doing what I'm doing right now with my seminars, and with like clients and people that I build booths for, and because I've done so much performing and I've done so much. It's just, if you can help give people, just if you can't see, if you're not catching a fish right now in this one area, we'll just go look at another place. And maybe we just got to look at a couple things that, like, you know, it maybe it's raining that day. It's okay. But you have to let people not feel discouraged. I would tell people rejection, and you will not get a lot of rejections. Like, that will so rarely happen. You will sooner hear absolutely nothing than you will get in. Like, I don't get emails back from people, from agents, and like when I don't nail it for Pixar, when I can't play the 7-year-old bird that's a real upstart firecracker, they don't say, "No, John, not what we're looking for." They don't. You're just gonna not hear back. And every now and then, like, you'll get on hold, or you'll get a call back. Then that can get a little extra exciting because you're like, "Oh, they've asked me to read again." And then again, I would say give it the same enthusiasm. They don't want anything way different than what you already did. They already liked what you did. They'll probably tell you what they want to change, or you just keep kind of close to what you did. Maybe you can give a little extra something if you feel. But really, if they want to hear you again, it's because they want to hear you again. And then if they don't, it's okay. I can't tell you how many times I've been contacted by producers that are like, "John, you literally got to the top of the board. You were the number 2 for this. They went with the other guy. Sorry, buddy." I'm
Oh,
like, "It's okay." I was like, I was like, I knew I nailed it. I thought I really did well. I was like, "You had me call back," and they didn't send me an email saying back, but I happen to know the guy. And I said, "Hey, what happened?" He's like, "Oh, actually, you got right to the end. That's why you got that email." But then they just picked the other guy. And then you go, "Okay." And you move on. You got to kind of keep fresh in this world. Like, there's not a lot of time you can spend to grieve over that. You can, like, obviously, if you have a really big opportunity and something doesn't come your way, I'll tell anybody, feel what you need to feel for a minute, but do yourself the favor and
get back on
move
the
on.
horse.
You know, call somebody you need to. Like, if I ever feel really down in the dumps about something, I'll just call one of my best friends and just be like, "Hi, I just need a little comfort right now." And they'll usually be like, "What do you need comfort for? You're the man. You're absolutely great." And you're like, "Okay, thanks. Sometimes you need to hear it." And time heals all wounds too. I would tell people, just give it a minute and submit to another job. Like, that feeling you get of rejection will soon as disappear as you submit for the next one.
Yeah. And as soon as
You
you get
know?
your first approval, you're gonna forget about all those rejections you
Yeah.
had.
And if you're not booking something after like a year ish, I'd say anywhere, like, I'd be realistic with people. Like, a lot of clients was like, if you don't book anything within 6 months, that's traditional. I know some people that didn't book anything for like a year and a half. It took me like a 3 or 4 months,
Okay.
to kind of, like, with my first one, but that was with me making my own demos from scratch with engineers and mixers, and then I was using those to submit to people
So you
who
did
were like,
this your own way. You didn't really use
yeah,
your
yeah.
connections.
Yeah, well, the radio, to get the radio dramas, that ended up being a small world thing, but I ended up submitting for that before I knew the guy who ran that was a buddy of mine.
That is so
He, yeah. So it was, and then that, you get one thing that, like,
networking.
you really feel like you do a good job in, and then you start putting a team around you. You'll find ways to perpetuate it the more you learn about the industry and the more you learn about yourself and what you bring to it. Maybe you'll find you don't like being in the booth for long hours. Maybe audio booking for you. Maybe you got to go to more networking events then. Maybe talk to someone who does demos, or talk to a manager, talk to agents. There's so many agency meet and greets that you can get feedback about. Talk to about professionals in the industry. Like, you can contact somebody like me, like, or Fresh Eyes, and be like, "I'm not booking anything." I'll be like, "Well, why don't you show me everything you show everybody when you'd like to voice act? Let's have a look."
Okay.
Yeah, there's a solution to it.
And before we wrap up today's episode, I wanted to ask you, was there anything else you wanted to mention or talk about? Any upcoming projects or anything?
Oh, well, I would love to tell you about a couple, but I can't right now, which is
Oh,
fun.
dang.
But I mean, I guess Yeah, no, the big thing is we're doing a lot. The big announcement, I guess, is that my brother Marcus and I are both represented by Anime Enthusiast United conventions right now, and we're gonna start make some appearances coming up here, and we're excited to do that. Um, yeah, and I do, and like anybody who's out there, if you want to contact me, you can find my contacts in the links and all that. We can talk voiceover, or we can talk anime as well. I love both, but really keep keep the course, and keep giving yourself the tools to succeed. Give yourself the mindset that you are worth investing in, and believe in the me that believes in you. You can do it. You just gotta be your own best friend sometimes, and that can be harder some days. But voice acting is a very individual, cool industry to be a part of, and just like anime is such an individual and cool art form to the people who enjoy it. Every
Yeah.
person's experience is so different, and it's so worth investing in and talking about, because everyone's will be different, and it's a unique fingerprint of art we all get to share. So keep it up, you know.
For sure. And next time we do another collaboration, we got to try to not do an interview and actually talk about some anime, get in depth review.
Yeah, bring me back. We'll talk about some anime. One Piece is hitting a big peak in areas. We can talk about My Hero. We can talk about Demon Slayer. We can talk anything. Talk Ice Blade even.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Bring
And
me
with
back.
and with that, we wrap up today's episode of the Raysean Gadson Anime Podcast. I want to thank everyone for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you're listening, audio, or we're now on YouTube. So guys, please try to like up my videos so we can go up in the algorithm. Special thanks to our guest John Stimac. I'm gonna have all his links and stuff below. Until next time, peace.
Thanks for having me, buddy.